Hey everyone, I'm Nicole Gorey. We interview candidates running in races that impact Riverbend voters and asked each of them the exact same questions. In this video, you'll hear their answers grouped together by topic so it's easier to compare their positions. Thank you to all of the candidates who made time for this, and we hope this helps you head into primary election day informed and ready.
My name's Blaha. I'm running for Congress in Illinois' 13th District. I'm originally from Lamont, Illinois, but I've lived in Champaign-Urbana since 2013 when I went to school there for my bachelor's and eventually my master's. I am not somebody that always wanted to be a politician, but I'm running for Congress right now to help people because unfortunately we see that our Democratic Party stands for almost nothing, and I stand for a lot of things. So things like fighting for the working class, and that's what I want to bring to the people of Illinois District 13 and the rest of America.
Hi there, my name is Kyle Nudo, and I am a candidate for the U.S. House of Representatives for Illinois 15. You know, I'm running to restore the American dream. I think it needs to be affordable, achievable, and attainable for everyone. And, well, what does that mean? You know, I am a working class guy. I'm a member of 3 labor unions. I believe that the working class has been left behind. I believe that both parties have failed the working class. You know, for the last 50 years, you know, I'm only 54, so deep in the rearview mirror of my mind, I can remember a time when a single income was enough, and people today have 5 jobs and 5 working adults in any given household. I talk to people all over this district, and they're stuck. They can't afford a house. They can't afford their life. And to me, that's not freedom. So adding to that, when I watch Mary Miller, I see someone who has violated every value that I was raised on and raised to uphold here in America's heartland. I think it's vulgar what she's done with this state. It's long past time for a working class candidate to be on the ballot. I'm the first union candidate in 60 years. The folks with the AFL and the electricians here in this area tell me. So I draw a direct line between that fact and why we lose elections here in the Democratic Party.
I am Paul Davis. I am a veterinarian and a bass fisherman. I'm not a politician, but I am running for United States Congress in Illinois' 15th District because I am concerned that as a nation and a district, we have lost our center. Our politics has just become too divisive, too disconnected, and too extreme to serve any of us like it's supposed to. Too many politicians, especially our incumbent in the 15th, care much more about making headlines than taking care of folks at home. She avoids town halls, she ignores real issues, and she pushes unconstitutional nonsense. I won't do that. I am running because I am, as a veterinarian, I'm a scientist, very concerned about the anti-science culture that exists these days. Public health should not be partisan, is not partisan. Medical and scientific research should not be political footballs. And I am running because our district needs a representative to look out for the backbone of our district. Our small businesses, our family farms need markets that are fair. They need reliable infrastructure. They need broadband that actually works. And they need markets or policies that don't change every time we have an election. So that's broadly why I'm running.
Yeah, my name is Raley. I live in Highland. I'm running for the Illinois 15th Congressional District. I am from the Quad Cities. I was born in Moline. I spent a lot of my time in East Moline for a 5-year stretch from the time I was 10 until I was 15. I lived on a farm in southern Missouri. So I've been a union guy, I've been a farmer, so I think I've got a little bit of a good background there with both of them. I am running because I have 5 grandchildren, and I am absolutely terrified about their future. A couple of my grandchildren identify with the LGBTQ plus community, and I am terrified, petrified about their future. And so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to leave my country in a little bit of a better state for my grandkids, like my grandparents left it for me. And I guess I'm just trying to do my part to save my country, because I think my country's in serious trouble right now, and I think we're on the verge of losing our country. I'm running because the person who represents my district right now doesn't represent me in any way, shape, or form. I'm probably for everything she's against, and I think I'm probably against everything she is for. And so that's one of the reasons I'm running. Basically, is because I don't like the country that I'm going to be leaving to my grandchildren. And if we don't do something about it now, I'm afraid we're going to lose it.
My name is Jennifer Todd, and I live in Edwardsville, and I'm running for the Illinois 15th against Mary Miller. I started this adventure, I should say, back in January of 2025, that I found out she ran unopposed on the ballot in 24, and I decided that couldn't happen again, and so I started digging into things. And the more I dug in, the more I found out that she's been neglecting this district for the past 5 years, and by not bringing any money back. And that's what got me into this.
We've seen a lot of strain in our relationships with longtime allies like Canada, the European Union, and other traditional partners. If elected, how would you work to rebuild those alliances?
We have to do a lot. And I think one way that we do it is by cutting our defense budget and by allocating that money to things like humanitarian aid. We need to be a leader of peace, diplomacy, and humanitarian aid around the world, and end our U.S. military imperialism. Because what Trump did with Venezuela is not new. It was very overt. He did it because of oil. They did it because of gold. But we've done it before. We've done it with Iraq. We've done it in Iran to make sure that they didn't nationalize their oil reserves. And those are the kinds of things that we need to end. It's really tough to see where things are, but I respect Canada for standing up to America and everything that's going on right now. Tariffs are not necessarily a bad thing if you're using it to build up U.S. industry. But when using it in the way that Donald Trump is, like an idiot, then no, it's not helpful to anyone. So, it's going to take a lot of work. We got to earn it back. But we'll start in 26. I mean, there are a lot of Europeans. I was stationed in Europe for 3 years. There's a lot of people around the world that know that Donald Trump doesn't represent everyone. But unfortunately, he represents a sizable portion of Americans right now.
Well, number one, I think alliances are just like friendships or any other coalition. And the thing about friendships is it's based on mutual trust. So if Canada doesn't want to buy our tomatoes anymore and is going to Mexico because, well, they just don't trust us, they have every reason not to trust us under the current administration. And folks that like Mary Miller that just rubber stamp everything that Donald Trump says, that sends our friendships and our partnerships away. So number one, I would work to rebuild those trusts, make sure that our friends know that we are extending an open hand of friendship. And also make sure that our trading partners know that we are more than happy to do fair trade.
I think it starts with, as a congressman, going in and encouraging Congress to provide the oversight and the co-equal branch of government that it's supposed to be and do. Obviously, markets that our farmers have lost internationally, we may never get back and certainly may take years. And that trust with Canada and other partners, NATO alliances, while I think we have dramatically bruised it, to say the least, my hope is if we come back with more consistent policy over the next several years, we can rebuild some of those alliances.
Well, number one, we've got to take control of Congress, and we have to do it in such a way where it's a large majority. And we're going to have to work really hard to patch up the damage done. And I would hope that 70 years worth of goodwill will count for something against 2 years of betrayal. It's going to take us earning their respect. It may take a congressional delegation to go over and try to smooth things out. Number one, we have got to have Congress in control of tariffs like it's supposed to, and have some kind of reason, some kind of rhyme or reason why these tariffs are being enacted the way they are, not just by the whim of the president. I can tell you that the tariffs have done enormous damage in the 15th district. But this is our World War II, guys. This is a generational crisis where we're going to have to be creative. We're going to have to, there are going to have to be sacrifices made in order for us to patch this up, because it's going to take a lot longer to patch up than it did to unravel. So I think, number one, we're going to have to do some things that earn their respect again, get a handle on this crazy tariff thing, and basically it's going to take, like I said, maybe a congressional delegation or two to just walk over and say, mea culpa. Maybe we have to throw ourselves at their feet or something. I'm not sure, but that's one of the most important things that needs to be done.
Well, we need the tariffs to be gone, because that's the biggest issue that we're having is the tariffs. And unfortunately, unless we can impeach Trump, that we're going to have a lot to do and be able to get those relationships back. It all stems to him, and as much as we try hardest to bridge those relationship things, it's just whatever comes out of his mouth is what ends up being the issue. We need to stay into NATO. We need to, be with our allies, and you can't do that when you have someone going off, saying one thing and then doing another, and it's just there's no stability right now.
The U.S. continues to send funding and military support to Israel. Given what's happening in Gaza and the West Bank, would you continue that funding, and why?
I will not. I will not send a single dollar to Israel. I do believe that they are an apartheid state, and until we can reach a one-state solution, I will not help to fund Israel's genocide in Gaza or everything that's going on in the West Bank. It's disgusting, and it's crazy that we're having these conversations. And you see even now a lot of establishment Democrats will admit that it's a genocide. But, there's always a but. And they still say, oh, Israel has a right to defend itself and all those things. And it's like, well, they're the one that's attacking people. So I don't know if that's what we should lead with right now.
Well, number one, about funding, the answer is a simple no. We are sending armaments to a war zone that the Europeans are telling us, they consider Netanyahu a war criminal. I do as well. And I think that the things that he has done, not just recently, but throughout his entire career, if you look at who he has been, he hasn't changed. Just like Donald Trump hasn't changed. Just like Putin hasn't changed. These people are trying to destroy. They are trying to extract from all of us, make our lives more expensive, make our lives more painful, keep us in the corner. And as far as the money, no, I think the plug should be pulled immediately. As far as what's happening in the West Bank, I find it heartbreaking. If you look at the way that they have leveled that entire area of Palestine, the word on the street from over in Europe is that they're building a concentration camp right in the middle of Israel. And I thought we were supposed to never forget.
No, I have already committed to not take any AIPAC money. And certainly, I think while we want a safe Israel, there have to be borders. We have to protect human rights for everyone. And what's going on there is not an appropriate response to current conditions, for sure.
No, genocide anywhere is genocide everywhere. This has been one of the most shameful things that have happened in the history of the world. for a country that is headed by a war criminal to absolutely destroy another country with our help just turns my stomach. And I believe that what they've done to the Palestinian people is just absolutely unspeakable, and they will get their reckoning someday too. But this is horrific. What has happened in the West Bank to the Palestinians, and one of the things that I would do is hopefully use some common sense to, and then they laugh about it and they think it's funny. Well, we'll just build hotels and all of that stuff on the backs of dead children. So I think this is a really, really dark stain on the history of the world.
Yes, there's been genocide in Gaza, and that we need more humanitarian aid sent into Gaza. Israel needs to stop what they're doing, and we need to cut the funding to Israel, because they are causing this. They're making this go even further than what it should be. And there are so many people that are without homes, without water, without electricity, that it's not safe for anyone. And right now, the whole area is nothing but concrete rubble. And that's not how things should be. And we have to be able to get the aid in, and we have to be able to go in there and help the people there. It's just, there's too many lives have been lost. And right now, we have to save lives.
The war in Ukraine is ongoing, and U.S. support has been a major factor. Would you continue funding and military support for Ukraine?
It's a difficult question, right? I think with any ally, we should support them. But I think it's a bigger question of what does that mean? Does that mean that we should send them unlimited weapons and ammo with no restrictions? We need to push for peace, and we need to push Russia to not do this anymore. Ways that we can actually weaponize economic sanctions against them the way that we have against countries that we've destabilized, like Venezuela. So I do think that'll go a long way. It's difficult to admit that it would be very, very difficult to get Crimea back again. And I feel for everyone in Ukraine that has been hurting. I have personally worked with Ukraine medical personnel, their Surgeon General over the years, trying to improve their casualty operations. And I care about Ukraine, but we need to look for solutions to end the war as soon as possible, and then build up enough assurances that this shouldn't happen again. Because I guess this is a moment I'll talk a little bit more about the Department of Defense, not war. And I believe in at least cutting the defense budget by over 10%, over $100 billion. Like, we need to get rid of these fraudulent contracts. I believe it's great to have a military to defend yourself and to potentially help out an ally in a time of need. But unfortunately, what I saw in Europe was that the other 31 countries in NATO assumed that if they went to war, the US would bail them out. It's the same way in the Pacific. It's the same way in Australia and New Zealand. Everyone assumes that we will bail them out. And so now there's been a big reckoning. I don't think they assume that anymore, many countries, but we can be one of 32 in NATO, but we can't be the main one in NATO if we're going to do it. And we also have to reckon with the fact that NATO's done a lot of fucked up shit over the years.
Hands down. Absolutely. I know a number of Ukrainians, and again, as I said in the previous question, Putin hasn't changed. He has one agenda. And the kind of apologizing that we are doing right now in the White House, and, the idea that even the Epstein files were a Russian-led honeypot, that's coming to us from Europe as well. Their intelligence is telling us these things. Why aren't we studying this here? Well, we have a congressional blockade, don't we? More apologists and timid people that are too afraid to fight this head on. So as far as Ukraine, absolutely. If Putin takes Ukraine, Poland is next. And if Poland goes, then Article 5 would have to be invoked. And I am terrified. Well, let me say it this way. I'm absolutely confident that Donald Trump would once again renege on an agreement. He's reneged on every single one throughout his career. And again, he's not changed, and he's not going to change anytime soon. And what does that mean for all of us?
Yes, absolutely, 1,000%.
We made a promise to Ukraine back in 1994 when we signed that agreement that if they gave up their nuclear arsenal, which is one of the top 5 nuclear arsenals in the world, I believe, at the time, if not top 5, top 10, if they gave up their nuclear arsenal, we would protect them from aggression. Well, they did, and now we're backing away from that, which is just another case of the person who's in president now not having any kind of common sense or any kind of scruples at all. We gave them our word. If they got rid of their nuclear arsenal, we would protect them from aggression, and we have not done that. And again, that's another stain on the history of America, the way that we've treated the Ukrainians. When, again, we gave them our word. We signed a document. It was witnessed that we will protect you, and now we're not. So, yes, I think that we need to up the aid to Ukraine. I think we need to match drone against drone. I think the Russians need to be driven out of Ukraine and never to return. And, the thing about it is the Republicans used to hate Russians, and now they seem to embrace all of that ideology. So, yes, we must not only give Ukraine what they need, but give them more to make sure they have what they want.
Yes. This has been going on for far too long, and Russia has no need for that land. They have no need for it. And Ukraine has been a country of its own for the longest time, and it's just Putin trying to be a dictator and taking things that is not his. We've got to grow more of a stronger backbone and start standing up to these people and doing what's right. And right now, we're not doing that. We need to start standing up to the Russians and say, hey, no, you're killing people just to be killing people because you want this little piece of land. You don't need that little piece of land. You already have enough.
A lot of voters feel like politicians drift once they get to D.C. If elected, how would you stay accountable to working class people in this district?
I'm a grassroots candidate, so I don't take money from corporations, APAC, special interest groups. And so I believe that that's one great way that I can stay accountable, because I have to ask for their help to get elected again. I need their help monetarily to be able to, pay for staff, campaign staff, walk cards, etc. And so that'll be a huge way. But in general, too, I just plan to be available as much as possible, both in the district and digitally. We've had a bunch of great advances in technology. Obviously, the weaponization of our data is not one of them, but we have a lot of great technology in the world. Why not use it? Why not use it to make sure that we can stay connected and hear from everyone? Because what I've heard many stories from people at the doors. Either Nikki doesn't answer their email, she doesn't answer their call, or she sends a generic message. And if somebody is wearing a hijab and walks up to her, she will just run away. So, and I will not run away from any constituents, no matter what they think of me. It's important to hear from everyone.
Okay, this is a great question. Thank you so much for asking about working class issues. As I said in my opening, I'm a working class person, a working class guy. I am here to serve the working class. I believe that the Democratic Party turned down the wrong street when we became a corporatist party. I believe that the oligarchy that we see today is in large part due to the fact that we have lost working class voters. I will remain accountable to working class people because I always have been. If I didn't say it before, I've worked in 47 states, and I've been either the union deputy or the union steward in almost every job I have ever had. I have stood as the sword and shield for my sisters and brothers who are being retaliated against by their employers, or are being shaved by their employers, or are victims of wage theft from their employers. I have been the one to stand up right there in front so that they can stay anonymous, so that they don't get blacklisted in their workplaces, so they don't lose their jobs for being the squeaky wheel. I am more than happy to be that squeaky wheel and the thorn in the side of big business. Small businesses are being killed across the heartland, across our district. We don't have hardly any of the factories that we used to have. Just look at Alton Steel, right? That was owned by a rich man who owns properties all over Alton. Now, you can't tell me that that guy couldn't keep that company open on his own. The reasons that he has stated that he had to close down or is closing down Alton Steel is consolidation and too much pressure from monopoly power. I have, in my career as a unionist, as a union organizer, and as a fighter for the common man, I have taken on vested interests just like that, and I have won every time. So in terms of what I bring for the working class, you better believe it's brass knuckles. But when you're asking me about accountability, you will always be able to count on me to not only bring the brass knuckles and fight for working class people to be able to afford their own lives and to remain free and to enjoy liberty in their daily lives, but I will be around. I'm from Alton. You know, I can and will be here in the seasons when you're not in session in Washington. You just come knock on my door and we'll talk about the problems and issues right here in our area.
I think the first thing I will do is show up and be accessible. So that is one thing that we don't see in the 15th district, is a representative that responds. You may not always agree with me, but I will commit to always being available and always being responsive to your questions and your concerns, and do my best to support the working class folks in the district for sure.
Okay, I come from middle class. My father was a union worker. He worked at International Harvester in East Moline, Illinois for 40 years, paid off his mortgage 10 years early. My mother was a waitress, worked very, very hard, but was a very good waitress myself. I spent 5 years on a farm. I'm a union guy. I used to work in unions. I'm a guy that's lived paycheck to paycheck, so I kind of understand what's going on here. But one thing that I've done since I've joined the candidacy is I'm forming these coalitions, and what I mean by that is I'm having conversations with farmers, I'm having conversations with truck drivers, I'm having conversations with union people, with teachers, with nurses, I'm having conversations with small town mayors, having conversations with chambers of commerce, city councils, and all of that. And so I'm trying to find out what I can do for the working man. What do they need? What are their needs? How can I help them in Congress make their lives better? When I go into a farm bureau, you know, I'm kind of the enemy because Rush Limbaugh told those people to hate me for 30 years, and so I have to find some way to break the ice. And so I walk into a meeting and I say, when was the last time a politician ever asked your opinion on anything? And then it kind of, the temperature kind of, and we find a little bit of a common ground, and they go, well, no. And I said, I'm here to listen. I'm here to listen to find out what you need. And I just had a conversation over in Tuscola with the head of the economic development over there, and they're doing things right over there. And so I'm taking that information and using it in the district. I'm talking to educators about educational plans that we might want to transfer to rural America. So my short answer for you is, what am I doing for the working man? I'm finding out what they need. What do they need? And I've been traveling around the district doing that and putting together these coalitions that I hope will guide me into doing the right thing and provide people, working people, what they need to make their life better.
By showing up in the district, being out there listening to the district, that's one of my main things. When I first started this campaign, I was doing my listening tour. I was going out and listening to everyone, what the problems were, what they saw as issues. And right now, those issues are, infrastructure. And, back in the summer, Matt Toon had the water treatment plant issue where they had completely shut down all their water. And not a peep came out of our current representative. And, I'm helping, trying to get people who are some of the seniors that were living in the senior apartments, making sure they got water. And those are things that's what a representative is supposed to do.
Do you support abolishing ICE, and would you support prosecuting agents who violate constitutional rights?
I do. I support the abolition of ICE. I also support the abolition of DHS as a whole and prosecuting every ICE agent. There's been that's been involved in a crime. There's been over 40 people that have died, not just Keith Porter and Alex Preddy and Renee Good, that have died at the hands of ICE since Donald Trump took office. And there's been a lot of people that were affected even beforehand. They're building concentration camps. They're acting like a secret police Gestapo. And if you hear the things that they say to each other, it's unfortunately these are problems that are inherent in our entire law enforcement agency. There's definitely a culture problem. There's the fact that I think in general our law enforcement in America is not accountable enough to the communities, and they've become overly militarized since 9/11. But with ICE, did you see the video yesterday that came out of the woman that was shot in Chicago 5 times? And yeah, they said that she rammed their car, and then upon further inspection, they were the ones that did the ramming and then shot her 5 times. And yeah, I mean, it's so embarrassing to see a Democratic Party that is fighting for basically no reforms. Body cameras don't work. We've seen the data. Police prefer body cameras because they can weaponize it a certain way. And so like in that same video from yesterday, they said, hey, body cameras are on. So that's a way of them knowing that they can say things to manipulate the video and say, oh, we're boxed in. And then you see a different angle and there's nobody boxing them in. But that is what they do. That is what law enforcement has unfortunately done for a while. And, I hope that one day we can overcome the barriers of systemic racism and we can have a true justice system that isn't weaponized against our Black and brown communities, against Muslims, against just so many people that have faced the brunt of U.S. colonialism turned inward.
Yes. Yes to both. I think we need to abolish ICE as we know it. What I see in the streets, judge, jury, executioner, no, that's not law enforcement. And the folks that they have employed are absolutely some of the most vulnerable people among us, that they're taking advantage of their ignorance. They're taking advantage of them and turning them into effectively a Wild West posse. They've trained them poorly and they've given them license to kill. I know the numbers that they offer these guys. It's a scam. You've heard this. The $50,000 that they've been given as a sign-on bonus, they don't get. You have to pay it back if you quit early. What kind of scam is that? It's a Donald Trump scam, just like we have seen from him through his entire career. And they're using these vulnerable people to then go after and round up the even more vulnerable among us. And if you see that in your streets, I hope you're blowing whistles, folks. I really do. I hope you are demonstrating. I hope you are marching, because the only way to stop this is together.
Number one, I would absolutely prosecute agents that broke the law. No one's above the law in this country, or should be. As far as abolishing ICE, I think I would deconstruct it almost completely from the top down. I believe in border security. I don't think any of us want insecurity, but the way things are being done now is wildly inhumane, wildly erratic, and wildly inappropriate. It's not what I think most Americans want to see. We want criminals deported. We want criminals prosecuted, but we don't want everyday folks that are just here trying to make a life better for themselves to be scooped up or American citizens killed in the street. We're not after that.
Let's get back to what ICE was doing before all of this, because it is an organization that's been around a long time. And so we've never had a problem with these people until Trump militarized them. And that's what he's done. He's militarized. And yes, I want the people who have caused harm to the citizens of Minneapolis, I want them prosecuted. I want them held responsible for what they've done. And I'm very, very adamant about that. My stomach turns every time I think about. I have friends that live in Minneapolis, and their kids won't go to school, and they're afraid to go out on the street because they're American citizens. But with those people, it just doesn't care. We have to get the lawlessness and the criminality and the militarization out of this department.
We've always had ICE, but not in this form. And it's the extreme form that it's in right now that needs to go away. And holding everyone accountable for what they have done. Yes. We lost 2 citizens for no reason. And the people that have, the individual that did the shooting, they need to be held accountable. Because there was no need for them to be shot. None. And we got to take back control. And right now we're trying our hardest to do that. But, sometimes our hands are tied, but without giving them the funding, they're going to have to shut down.
A lot of ICE supporters talk about public safety, and that often defaults to policing. What does public safety look like beyond just policing, and what policies would you pursue to get us there?
So I think for me, it starts with acknowledging that crime goes down when people's basic needs are met. And so we have to start there. I do believe that when it comes to policing, like I said before, we need a police force that is accountable to the community, to the people. And what we don't need is what we see right now. And we are lucky that even in our district, we have some police departments that have actually started to use social workers that go out with police. Sometimes it's because things have been so bad that they've acknowledged that they want to try it out, and it has worked. And so it comes from the messaging of I hate even saying the words, but defund the police. Right? Like, that's not what we really wanted. It was probably like the worst campaign ever. What we want is to reallocate those resources, to decrease the militarization of the police force, to invest in certain things like social work so that police officers can focus on policing, on solving crimes, what they actually signed up to do. So that's definitely one. But I also think that security comes from, and safety comes from knowing that your government is actually looking out for you. And unfortunately, right now, we've seen the exact opposite. Not only do we have pedophiles in the government, all over the government, we have laws enacted that are weaponized against trans people, against immigrants, against women now, especially with this horrible SAVE Act that they voted to pass in the House. And nobody would say that the government works for all people right now. Donald Trump has admitted as much. But I think we'll also start to see safety when we actually have trust that the people that we have in power are looking out for us, because they certainly are not now.
Public safety is probably one of our biggest key issues. People want to be safe, secure, and not have wild, erratic people in office representing them. I can certainly say that one of the most satisfying things that I would be able to deliver to people is a safe and secure income. We don't need people living paycheck to paycheck. We don't need health insurance issues or health care issues, putting people into bankruptcy, people losing their homes, private equity taking homes in too many areas, the rent issues, the cost of living issues, the tariffs that are making prices go up and up and up. Those things need to be solved so that people can feel solvent in their life. As far as policing, police need to be trained on de-escalation. In so many other parts of the world, they get 3/4 of their training. Police get 3/4 or more of their training in de-escalation. Many people in police outfits around the world are highly educated. I think that we would do much better in having the smartest among us and the most caring among us out there with a badge. I don't think that we need to militarize our police force. I think that is scaremongering. It doesn't need to be so. When we send out that kind of police force, it is terrorizing our streets. And I think that only inflames issues. And I think if we were to take care of the root causes of crime first, then we would have a hell of a lot less crime and a hell of a lot better time in our daily lives, with police being our friends once again.
I think certainly we do need policing, absolutely. But I think public safety, we can approach this a lot of different ways. From the immigration standpoint, a lot of the money that is spent on ICE could certainly go to, if we defund lots of that, could go to hiring more immigration judges, more immigration attorneys to speed the process up legally to get folks in so that everybody feels like this is being handled appropriately, or at least the most reasonable folks.
The Obama administration deported 5 million illegal immigrants, but they did it through due process, and they did it through legal channels. And when you go stormtrooping into a city and you start killing the residents, I think you got a real problem here. What they've been doing hasn't worked. And I have questions for those people. I'd like to know the person who killed Renee Good, why isn't he being held responsible? Where's Alex Pretty's phone? Where did that go? And why haven't the people who shot Alex Pretty been arrested or prosecuted in any way? So number one, there are certain things that, have to be done within the boundary of the law. Now, if you're going after gang members and you're going after the bad people, well, okay, I can understand that, but that's not what the result has been. And so it needs a complete overhaul from the top to the bottom, and I think that's where we go. But what they've been doing is just, that's not my America, and it's got to stop.
ICE was meant for, tracking down the illegals and getting them through the system. Everyone is allowed to have due process, no matter who you are. If you're in the United States, you have to have due process. That means even if you're an illegal and ICE comes and gets you, you need to have due process to be able to go through the system and say, hey, this is what's going on. Right now, there's no such thing as due process. I think if I remember correctly, they said that they had more people during the Obama administration deported than they have now, and without all this hubbubaloo. And it was supposed to get rid of all the criminals and all the sex offenders and all that. Well, they're just picking up people random off the street now. And no, that's not how this is supposed to be. We need more immigration attorneys. We need more immigration judges. We need to redo the whole process. The immigration system is broken. Yes, it's been broken. We had a chance to pass a new immigration bill, and it got stopped in the Senate. And if that would have gone into effect, we might not be where we're at right now. Yes, we all want safe borders, but we're built on immigrants. This is how we became the United States, is because people came here, and we wouldn't be where we are without immigrants. It's like with our farmers. The farmers need our immigrants. During harvest season, all this, we need to revamp the H-2A visa program to be able to get those people in, to get those immigrants in and those field workers in, to be able to get the field done and get the fruit picked, get the vegetables picked. That's one of the programs that we need to work on.
A lot of politicians support affordable health care, but do you support universal health care? And if so, what form should it take?
Affordable health care is such a horrible term. I do believe that, and I think also this will touch on, I'm a proponent for the federal jobs program, and that's why I'm also a proponent for Medicare for all. Because we need to take all those jobs out of the health insurance industry and federalize them to cut down administrative costs. Because nothing is more disgusting to me than hearing health insurance companies brag to investors how many claims they rejected in the last quarter. Like, that's bullshit. But unfortunately, that's where we're at. And so, I am excited to actually build a healthcare system that works for all people. And to be quite honest, I'm excited to see it help in rural areas where there's just been complete underinvestment. So many healthcare facilities are closing. Planned Parenthood had to close in Decatur. I mean, I know a lot of people that even live in Decatur that drive to Champaign-Urbana for healthcare. And it's not sustainable. We need drastic change. Any establishment Democrat that thinks that they can still defend the status quo in 2026 needs to get out of office.
This is so crazy because the terms have changed and shifted over the last, 30 years. Universal health care under Hillary Clinton, remember, she didn't mean Medicare for all. She didn't mean single payer. She meant universal. Everybody pays the same amount. For me, the only affordable way for health care to be affordable is that it is paid through our taxes, just like a single payer healthcare plan would execute. If you want to call it Medicare for all, great. If you want to expand that so that it goes from birth to death, great. If it were fully funded here, and remember, this is a fraction of the costs that we all pay to our, if you're paying for it on your own as a single person, if you're paying through your compensation package, if you're an employee and your employer is providing your health care, that's wildly costly. A tiny fraction of that in our taxes would cover everyone. You'd pay a few $100s a year. That's what most people pay. When I lived in England, I had to pay a small surcharge. For a year's worth of health care, it was around $500, more like $400 a year. Can you imagine paying that for total access? That's the kind of thing you can get. And let's remember that the UK is a tiny country compared to the United States. If we were all paying in as a community, it would be, once again, affordable. Your taxes pay for, well, we were just talking about the police. They pay for the fire department. They pay for safety on our streets. I don't see any reason why our taxes shouldn't pay for true health safety in our lives as well.
I absolutely do. I think that is probably, as I've moved along in this campaign, become one of the most important issues out there to me. I think everything kind of falls back with healthcare expenses. So I think universal healthcare, what we call it doesn't matter to me, but I think that carries some old baggage. My suggestion would be, hey, we call it Medicare for all. We're already doing that. We just have to drop the age of eligibility. We can do that drastically quickly. We can do it incrementally. Whatever we can begin to do to start to cover everyone completely. You're born, you go on it. You die, you go off of it. Seems like a pretty simple thing, and everybody has the same plan. Would also save us money, not only individuals, but as a nation.
Here's what I support. I support a single-payer plan. There are a number of them out there. Countries around the world, I think there are 3 or 4 different types of single-payer plans that they use. And one of the reasons I want a single-payer plan is because my district on the east side is completely different than my district in the middle and on the west side. Because the east side in the middle is all rural, and on the west side it's very much urban. And one of the things about farmers that really got to me was that 66% of farmers' bankruptcies and farmers' suicides were due to medical debt. Now, we can eliminate that. In one of the talks I had with one of the chambers of commerce, a small businessman stood up and he said, "What can you do for me?" I said, well, one of the things that we can do for you is let's eliminate the cap on Social Security so small businesses aren't throttled by that FICA tax. Then let's get a single payer plan where small business now gets out of the insurance company too. So I think if we have some kind of single payer plan, and that would require more research to find out which one would work. I've done some research, and I think the Canadian single payer plan would probably be close to what we would need here in America. But when you have people all across the country lose their farms and lose their houses and lose all of their savings to medical debt. It's not right. Every other country in the world is doing this, and the only reason we're not doing this is because of the insurance lobby and their money in politics. And if you might, I think if you don't mind, Citizens United has to go, and I think that might be a way that we start turning or get the ball rolling. Let's get rid of all of this dark money in politics, and then let's work on a single payer plan where we can really do some good for the American people.
Yes, I do. I am a nurse. I've been one for the last 32 years, and we need a single payer system. It could be universal health care, it could be, Medicare for all, but we need that. Come January of 2027, the cuts to Medicare and Medicaid go into effect after the midterms. It was all by design, because of people are not going to really notice that things are not going to get cut, things are going to get cut until after they had a chance to vote for people. So that's one of my main focuses, is letting people know that these cuts are coming, whether they like it or not, and that you have to be able to you have to have health care. Health care is a right, and it needs to be affordable, it needs to be accessible, and here pretty soon, we're not going to have that accessibility here in the Illinois 15th, in central Illinois. We have pretty much everything is a rural hospital or a rural clinic, and our nursing homes. They rely on Medicaid for payment to be able to pay their bills. And when that goes away, they're going to close because they're not going to be able to sustain things. And sad to say is we're going to see death worse than COVID if this happens, because nursing homes are going to be the first to close because they can't pay their bills, and pretty much 90% of their residents are on Medicaid because that's what pays their room and board. Medicare will only pay for the first 100 days, and that's if you have skills, as in you're getting physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, and IV therapy, antibiotics, and so forth. And then after that day 101, you have to have Medicaid in order to pay for the room and board. So where are these people going to go? Well, they're going to have to go home with their family. Well, what if their family's already working 2 or 3 jobs? Someone's going to have to stop working to be able to take care of their loved one at home because they can't afford to hire someone to do that. So it's a vicious cycle that keeps going, and people are not going to understand it. And sad to say, a lot of individuals in the redder areas, some of them are not going to believe it until it actually happens to them. And we just have to keep preaching it, but keep reinforcing that this is going to happen. Johnson said they're looking for all the fraud and abuse. Well, they're not looking in the right areas for the fraud and abuse. They're not looking at the physicians. They're not looking at the healthcare systems, and not looking at the insurance companies. And that's the areas that they need to look. That's where most of your fraud and abuse is at, is the billing practices. And they're not looking at that.
Is there an issue where you fundamentally disagree with current Democratic leadership? If so, what is it and why?
It's hard to find an issue where we do agree. I think when it comes to, I originally started running because of the big 3 issues. The fact that they threw immigrants under the bus, the fact that they threw trans people under the bus, and that they supported Israel's genocide in Gaza. And those are things that I just can't, those are my red lines. I can't get past it. I do believe that people like Nikki don't vote for Medicare for all, not because they don't believe in it, but because of the money that they take from pharmaceutical companies and health insurance companies and all of those. But yeah, I mean, so this is an article, I don't remember what day Renee Good was murdered, but Nikki was interviewed by NPR last month. And I think I brought this up at the town hall, Corey. And she said, the problem with immigration is that we didn't do more under Biden to close the border. This was a couple weeks ago. And so the fact that she's still saying this now, playing into that right-wing framing and that right-wing rhetoric, means that I don't have confidence in somebody like her to actually pass things, to actually pass the truth on to people even, because she's not doing that.
I sigh heavily because there are a fairly long list of the things that I disagree with establishment Democrats. We were just talking about healthcare. I have been a single payer advocate 40 some years. I lost my mother to multiple myeloma, a bone marrow cancer here in Alton, when she was only 51 and I was only 25. Both of my grandfathers died from heart disease. As I said, lost my mother to cancer. I lost my grandmother to cancer, and I almost lost my girlfriend to cancer. But, my girlfriend Tiffany, she was saved because she was on Medicare, right? She was on, for low income people. She was able to be healed, cured. They even used the word cured for her. And this kind of attitude that we can't do big things in this country, that we have to creep along incrementally. I think that is an overall philosophy that I absolutely don't share with many people in today's Democratic Party. And for that matter, for the last, 50 some years. We can do big things. And to me, that's just patriotism. And I don't see why we're not fighting for it.
I would say there are a lot of them. And while I appreciate trying to get government to move along and work for everybody and fund government appropriately, I think we have to take stands where appropriate. Right now, funding ICE is, I think, an important ground to stand and say, no, we're not going to go any further than that. We can pull that out and still fund the rest of the government. So that is one, and I hope they hold strong there for sure.
Oh, oh my gosh, they are in it for their own good. I don't believe they represent the American people at all. I heard something from Mr. Jeffries today. He said that he is going to urge Democrats not to protest during Donald Trump's State of the Union speech. Come on, guys. We got to realize what kind of Democratic Party we want to be. We want to be the Democratic Party that governs in fear, like these people, like Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries. They're afraid of the Republican Party. Or are we going to be a party of courage with people like Melanie Stansbury and James Tellerico and Jasmine Crockett and people like that? The thing about the Democratic Party, I wear a button that says, we have been too silent too long. And I think that the people of the Democratic Party are looking for a little bit more fight. I think they're looking for a little bit more spirit. I'm tired of Lucy and the football and Charlie Brown and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not. If you're looking for Chuck Schumer, I'm not your guy. That's not me. If you're looking for somebody who's going to go in there and get loud and stand up for this district and be a fighter for this district, well, then that's me. But somebody came up to me the other day while I was campaigning, and he says, I'm not going to vote for you because you seem angry. And I said, you're damn right I'm angry. And if you're not angry, you're not paying attention. Damn right I'm angry, man. And I said, well, I'm sorry to lose your vote, but I probably wouldn't get it anyway. So it's a very disappointing, but not surprising, Democratic leadership that we have right now. It's a bunch of people that need to retire and get out of the way, and let's bring some new ideas into this particular arena.
They've been sitting on their hands too long, and they've needed to be a lot stronger than what they have been. And they're starting to show it, but it's a little bit too late. But I'm glad I'm seeing them starting to have that, more than just a strongly worded letter. And, we have to see some action. Strongly worded letter is not going to get you anywhere. We got to start taking it to where, we got to start voicing our opinions. We got to start rallying the troops. We've got to get things done. And you just don't do that with a strongly worded letter.
Unions are one of the few remaining structures that consistently raise wages and protect benefits. How would you strengthen organized labor and expand union powers?
I think organized labor is one of the most important parts of our campaign. And it is disheartening to see that, I don't have a single labor endorsement. And that is because the way in Illinois a lot of their rules is that if the incumbent has a good enough voting record, they get an automatic endorsement. They don't consider a challenger. Even though I believe in things like the PRO Act, enabling everyone in America to unionize, and overturning the Taft-Hartley Act, which actually would increase collective bargaining power. I think when I think of Democratic pandering, it rings true so much in unions. They always talk about how much they love unions, how much they want to defend unions. But when it actually comes to increasing their bargaining rights or supporting them on the picket lines, I don't always see them there. That's why every local union that I talk to asks me, the graduate student union here, so many more. They feel like they're not actually served, but unfortunately, it's a lot of things. Illinois has very close ties to Israel. I don't know if you saw, but we just invested another $1.5 million in, actually it might have been $1 billion in Israel bonds. So yeah, I mean, that's, yeah, good stuff. And our state treasurer says that he has to do it because according to the state law, it's illegal for him not to because of the anti-BDS law. I don't know how true that is, but we even see it. I think back to there was a couple people that protested for RICS up in the suburbs, and immediately who threw the people out of the event? The head of the labor unions. Like they're all so connected at the top that even the head of a lot of these labor unions don't actually fight for the people that are in their unions.
As I said, I'm a member of 3 labor unions. I have been endorsed by some of the biggest. I have fought hard. Being in a union changed my life and is life-changing for most people. That a person doesn't have to advocate for themselves, that we can instead collectively bargain and as a group have leverage in the workplace. I believe every single person in America deserves to be in a union. We have union busting from the right. We have union busting from the left. We have union busting from within. Number one, I have helped get new legislation passed at the state level. I have organized my sisters and brothers, and we've done that. Some of that legislation has found its way into the PRO Act. If you know the PRO Act, if we were to pass the PRO Act tomorrow, it would change lives in every county in America. It would effectively eliminate right to work everywhere. That is the first thing I would stand up for. But I would also stand up for, since we're talking about raising wages, I am, because of my advocacy, a wage theft, I guess I would say expert. I speak on it internationally. I hold salons. I teach students. I teach new union members and tomorrow's union members about wage theft. It's our number one form of theft in this country. Not home invasions, not being mugged on the street. It's your employer who's stealing from you. It's 2 out of 3 people in America. The average person loses over $2,000 every year, and it totals over $50 billion annually. And it is one of the biggest secrets that employers love to keep from everyone. If you've never heard about this, there is a reason why. So if you want someone who's going to protect you, try to find someone who has been protecting working people for his whole career. So I can promise you, there is nobody more pro-union, pro-labor, pro-working person. And yeah, I even believe in non-union workers as well. We like to say you're tomorrow's members, future members. But there is every reason why every single job in America should be unionized. Because that's how we built the middle class. And if you look around outside your windows, guys, who can count themselves as middle class anymore? There are only two classes, the ownership class and the working class. And if you're not in the ownership class, you're on the bottom with the rest of us. And you better believe that 99% is coming for Donald Trump and Mary Miller this fall.
I think there again, we need to make sure that the quote right to work laws are, if we could certainly get a national law that got rid of that, that would be fantastic. But I know we fall back, and currently we're trying to nationalize so many things with the current administration. They've always championed states' rights, but coming up with a fair wage, coming up with a way to that right to work name. I have found that any bill that's titled something usually means the opposite. I think broadly we just need to expand that, or not expand right to work, but decrease the footprint that has.
Number one, let's raise the minimum wage. Let's get that minimum wage up where it's supposed to be. And number two, let's make it easier for people to get into the union. One part, I have a plan on what I call rebuilding rural America. One part, it's still a concept of a plan. Sorry, I had to use that. Is that when we were back building things like interstate highways and sending people to space and sending people to the moon, the top tax rate was 70%. Well, it's now 35%. And so let's move that tax rate up on the most richest earners. Let's get that thing up a little bit. Let's take some of that. And see if we can apply it to maybe homeless veterans who would like to go to work. And bear with me here, and see if we can find them housing and mental health facilities. And let's see if we can get them find their way into the trades. And let's see if we can get them to where they're carpenters and plumbers and electricians and pipe fitters and all that kind of stuff. And see if we can find financial incentives for them to take their avocation to rural America and start building, houses that people can afford. And say they sign a contract and they work or they stay 3 or 4 years in that small town. Well, then let's take and get rid of all of their debt. And, find a way to get those people into unions. And one of the things that I found out by talking to unions over on the other side of the state is that they've had 2 projects canceled due to a diversity clause in the contract. And you can imagine that those guys aren't real happy about that. But we've got to make the unions more powerful, and one of the reasons how you do that is get more people in the union. Let's make it easier for people to bargain. Let's bring some, like nurses and teachers and all of that. Let's see if we can get more people in those unions, because I think that the more people you get in a union, the stronger you make it. Let's give them more power when it comes to negotiations and things along that line. But unions were very good to me, and I'm going to try to be very good to them.
Well, first you need more jobs. And in order to bring back new jobs, we need to have community project funding, which is bringing those earmarks back to the district, which will give our electricians, our plumbers, our steel workers, our iron workers all jobs, because infrastructure needs to be done. We have so many villages and townships that still have lead pipes. They still have cast iron pipes. That still have clay pipes. We need that redone. We have some villages that need new water towers. There's so much construction that needs to be done that we can keep people busy for years on all these projects. With the last 5 years being so neglected, it's going to take us 10 plus years to get everything up to where it needs to be. And that's one thing that my biggest thing is to get that money back. We have to have a decent place to live. We have to have clean water. We have to have proper sewer treatment plants. And we have to be able to help our kids grow. So they need to be able to have a good school system. Well, that's what that money's for. That's our taxpayer money. That's the reason why we pay our taxes. And we have to be able to get that money back, to put it back into our communities, to make our communities thrive. And that will help bring in the jobs and bring in the labor and the union jobs.
We're seeing rapid expansion of AI infrastructure and data centers, which raise concerns about energy use and environmental impact. What are your climate priorities, and how should we approach this growth?
It's definitely very different from Representative Bazinski, that's for sure. She believes in carbon capture, in biofuel, and in building AI data centers. And I am against all of those things. We need ways, I mean, especially even in the short term. I mean, I want to make sure that we have a moratorium on building data centers, but in the short term, we need to do everything we can to pass those costs of the data centers back onto the corporations, make sure that our drinking water is still safe and all those things. And our state representative, Carol Ammons, is working some of that. She's pushing that bill into the state house. So they're doing what they can statewide, but we do need federal legislation to really ramp it down. So yeah, I'm for things like windmills, solar power, and just bringing more clean energy into the district, because it's not just about stopping climate change, it's about reversing it. And so eventually I would like to get to a point where we did have clean nuclear energy that we could power our district with. And but we have to be creative. It's something that I want to surround myself with a great team of climate scientists to make sure that we pass the right legislation, because we need to be aggressive. We need to start reversing climate change. So that way we actually have a planet that's livable in 75 years. Because the planet will be around for a long time. Whether we will be on it or not depends on what we do from here.
Well, I'm a pro-green guy. I have owned 3 EVs in my life. I'm driving my 3rd one right now. I think it should be a lot easier for people. It should be affordable and accessible, that you can generate your own electricity at home. Most municipalities prohibit you collecting wind at your house. Most municipalities around the country prohibit you collecting gray water. There are a lot of things that big energy has lobbied their way in and prevented you from just doing on your own. Solar is incredibly expensive. Here in Alton, I hear from people all the time about, they'll sign on for a solar plan and it'll take them decades for it to even pay for itself. That's incredibly crazy. The idea that the infrastructure is so expensive that it doesn't pay for itself immediately doesn't make sense, except when you think about the profit motive from each of these companies. The federal government should be subsidizing that. We should be getting off of fossil fuels in every way. I firmly believe that. I don't want to be sending my money to the Middle East anymore. I don't want my needs for gasoline or my neighbor's needs for gasoline to be sending us and just taking over countries like Venezuela because we need their oil or want their oil or want to profit from their resources. I think that that's immoral. As far as AI infrastructure, I would immediately impose, if I had the power, a moratorium on AI data centers. AI itself, the infrastructure, you have to remember I come from the entertainment industry, and, AI will take film, television, commercials, anything you see on a screen within 5 years will be completely different. The number of jobs, not just on camera, but off camera as well, is in the hundreds of millions that we will lose. And we don't have universal basic income. What's going to happen to those people when they're put into poverty? When we talk about blue collar jobs, when we talk about white collar jobs, AI is coming for those as well. If you push paper for a living in an office, or if you're doing it as one of the jobs that we all love to get, the work from home job, a few years back, everybody loved the idea from working from home once or twice a week or even 5 days a week. If you're doing that kind of job, that telecommute, those will disappear. And again, unless we have universal basic income, what are these people going to do to feed themselves? You look at the crime that we have now, you look at the suffering we have now. If we lose these jobs to AI, and I promise you that the Peter Thiels of the world want to remove people from these jobs. They'd rather have a robot doing it because a robot doesn't complain, a robot doesn't get sick, a robot doesn't show up late, a robot doesn't have children and, have issues like human beings do. The blue collar jobs, we saw a lot of mechanization throughout my lifetime. They want to take it even further and have AI do those jobs and have further mechanization do those jobs. It's a very scary time, but the good news is, and this is a long answer, I apologize, but the good news is the folks like Peter Thiel, they're hucksters. Remember that what they're selling us, it is moving very fast. But I don't believe it will deliver the promises that they say it will. But that just means we have to watch them even that much more carefully for the grift that they're trying to perpetrate on everyone.
A year ago, if you'd asked me about AI data centers, I'd have said, I don't know much about it, even 6 months ago. But the more I learn, the more it freaks me out, scares me to death. I think we absolutely need to slow the process down, learn more before any of this goes haywire. On its face, my commitment would be, hey, let's not build any data centers in the 15th district, period. But at the very least, I think we've got a lot more to learn. And I've been wrong before. As a scientist, I realize when new data comes up or other things come up that would suggest something different, or as a representative for a community, if they're bound and determined they want X, Y, or Z data center in their community, I would have to listen to them. But blanket, it scares me to death, concerns me, and right now I'd like to see a pause put on it till we learn a lot more and get a lot more details.
Well, here's the thing. After talking to Tammy Duckworth, one of the things about data centers in Illinois, not only, I think Tammy said it the other day, she said that Illinois wants to be the hub of quantum computing. And so that's one of the things about these data centers. Now, in the short term, they create great union jobs. In the long term, they create real trouble. Now, I think that again we're walking into the woods with these data centers. I wonder how it's going to be different 5 years from now. But I think that data centers need to be held to some kind of a responsible, environmental, community-friendly way to operate, and I don't think we're there yet. So my deal is that while it creates great union jobs, I think the jury is still out on these data centers, and I would call for a moratorium right now until we have more information, until we find out exactly what these data centers do to the local environment. Now, I was looking at something today that says that central Illinois is still in a very, very much of a drought pattern. Well, that's not going to go over very well if you need all of that water to power AI. So I let the buyer beware here. I would just right now just call for a moratorium on building any more of them until we have concrete, solid information about exactly what the damage or what the effects are on the local environment. Now we can talk about the true level of democracy is a town voting to bring one of these into their area only if they're not getting misinformation. So right now, my stand is let's put a moratorium on these things until we have a better understanding on how it works, why it works, and the effects it has on the local community.
Okay, climate change is real. We need to use more green energy. Several months ago, over in Greene County, I believe, one of the turbines came down. And Mary Miller made this big thing up saying, oh, look, it just fell down. It fell down. No, it was a scheduled takedown. It was a 20-year lifespan, and it ran its 20 years. So it was scheduled to come down. But we have to be able to have the turbines and the solar fields, because we need that green energy to be able to cut our energy costs. Electricity, it's sky high right now. We're starting to see more of the solar fields, and we're starting to tap into them. We're seeing people, with the bill that Biden passed about the clean energy and so forth. You got discounts for solar panels on your home, and we need to be able to do that more, because that helps us, besides getting rid of the emissions into the air and having cleaner air to breathe. It also saves us money, and who's not for saving some money? So any way to make things a lot easier, and we have to be able to do that. We have to look at other resources for things, because we cannot just rely on the oil and the coal because of what they do to our environment.
There's also been a rise in generative AI being used in classrooms. Do you believe the government should regulate how AI is used in schools?
Yeah, I just think it's not a tool that we should use in schools at all. We've seen that there's those children that are 6, 7, 8 years old that get addicted to talking to ChatGPT at night. But I mean, even then, I have heard that ChatGPT and Claude, they want to get to the point that if an 8-year-old asks a question, they want to be able to give an 8-year-old answer that they can write in their homework. But then there's no brain activity, there's no brain development, there's no long-term learning. We're seeing it even with college students now, that you're getting to the point where, there's no brain activity. They've done studies, they've seen this, and it's detrimental to our entire population.
Yes. Absolutely. As we see this now, all reports are showing to, students not being able to read an entire chapter because they've been conditioned away from typical common education techniques. College educators, high school educators are telling people that they can't assign more than one page of homework. They're telling parents and legislators that, not only can Johnny not read, but Johnny doesn't know how to find the information. So the chat GPTs that we're seeing are the ones that are being used to complete the homework, and these kids aren't learning anything. And that terrifies me for tomorrow. In terms of what could be used in classrooms, I think we need to be incredibly careful with our common education. The right likes to talk about common sense a lot. And they use one wedge issue after another, and they say, well, that just doesn't make common sense. It's in part because we don't have common knowledge anymore, that we've become so polarized in what we and our neighbors consider common sense. It has gotten that bad already. And if our children are being educated with this kind of future ahead of them, it's very sad to see. So yes, the answer is I think it should be regulated.
I do. It has grown so much in the last few years. I think it's an amazing tool, potentially for good in many cases, but from an education standpoint, we want our students to learn. We want them to learn to think for themselves and not rely on a machine that frequently tells them what they want to hear rather than what they need to hear. It would concern me, and I do think we need to come up with some reasonable regulations on it.
Well, I think Here's the thing. We're just getting ready to walk into the woods when it comes to AI. We've just seen the first part of it here, and what lies beyond, I'm not sure. I think AI has its place, but I don't think that you're ever going to replace the hands-on work of a in-person teacher. There's a lot of mistakes that can be made with AI too. So I think it could help as a tool. As a replacement, I have a real problem with that. And I think that anything that the teachers can get to make their job easier while still teaching, I am all for. But I think, I don't know, I think the jury is still out on AI. And I'm kind of watching what's going on here. But I think as a tool, it can be great, but it has an opportunity to be misused also. So I would want to make sure that there are some kind of controls on how it's used and why it's used and where it's used.
AI is something that we're going to have to come to grips with, but to a point that we have to be able to learn how to use it safely, and teach our kids how to use it safely. And we also have to remember that we have to remember that you can tell that something is AI, and you're not speaking out of your voice, and that you have to be able to, speak your truth and not some computer generated words. But education wise, we all need to know about it. But we need to set standards, we need to set safeguards to protecting our kids and even just protecting ourselves about what AI can do. We already know AI can do mean things with all the memes and videos that go up. And we just need to learn how we can actually spot them, that you can tell that they're AI. And some of them on Facebook, they tell you they're AI generated. So, but there's a lot of times where you don't know.
What do you see as the biggest needs in this district right now? And what concrete policies would you pursue to address them?
You already mentioned healthcare. I agree with healthcare. I believe affordable housing is another one that everyone could need right now. And bringing better jobs into the district with better wages. And that's a difficult one, because there are things like, the Green New Deal. We talk about the millions of jobs that will be created across the country, things like the federal jobs program to help bring more jobs into the district that are not private, that are public jobs with good wages and great benefits. Those are ways that we can help, but I'm going to have to work with some economists and see other ways, because there's been a lot of companies, especially in Metro East, especially in Springfield, that have left over the years. And so there's a lot of people that felt like they had a job maybe for the rest of their life, and then that job left. And so we have a lot of making up to do. We have a lot of making up to do for the people that have lost their jobs because of AI, and the people that have lost their jobs because businesses left or because the federal government fired them. But if we don't leave office knowing that people now have living wages adjusted to inflation, and by 2030, obviously, ideally, just as soon as we take office in 28, because we've seen how quickly Zoran can move. If we don't get living wages, if we don't make sure that people don't have 30 days guaranteed vacation every year, things like that, maternity, paternity leave, then we've failed. We need to pass these policies as aggressively as possible. Otherwise, there's just going to be President Nick Fuentes in 2032.
Number one issue is the neglect. Mary Miller has the things she's done and the things that she has refused to do have caused pure decay here. People are fleeing their areas because those jobs are somewhere else now. The issues here in terms of the lack of federal monies coming here. Mary Miller has been very specific about it until very recently, when she's fearing losing her job. She has said for years that she doesn't think our tax dollars should be spent. I want to say to her, Mary, well, then what are our taxes for? Why are we paying our taxes if they're not going to be spent here at home, fixing our streets, fixing our water towers, paying for our fire departments and so on, paying for those schools, paying for those teachers? If If we are not bringing tax dollars home, that's the number one biggest need. We need to make sure that we have returned those dollars that our citizens, our neighbors are spending. We put our faith in our government. We put our trust in our government. If you think about the friends you have, think about how many of them trust government and have faith in government. That's yet again one of our biggest needs. And these are interconnected. The fact that manufacturers are fleeing, can't afford to stay here, are cutting, down from 3 shifts to 2 shifts. I know lots of working guys that are suffering under these conditions, working 12-hour days. Now that might be nice, but what happened to that other 3rd shift? So this hurts families and that hurts our community. As you asked me before about accountability, I am going throughout our district, door to door to door, and talking to working people. And these are the stories that I'm hearing. These are the things that people want here. They want a stable life again. They don't want to have to think about politics every day and worry what's going to happen tomorrow. They want to have a bank account that they can survive on. So yeah, I'm talking about restoring the American dream and making it affordable, achievable, and attainable again. These are my priorities. I'm heartbroken. I say that a lot, and I shake my head all the time at where we are as a district, as a state. These are the reasons I am running, because I think we need to be able to put up somebody who you can trust, who is not erratic, someone whose values are in the right place, someone who cares about his neighbor, someone who wants your life to just be easy again.
I think certainly infrastructure is a big one. And the very simple, easy answer to start with for infrastructure is we bring back money for community projects, whether it is fixing said road, building a new water treatment plant, whatever it may be, and you just triage the individual communities in the district and work with the community leaders to find where the need is the greatest there and start from kind of the top down. The other big thing you worry about, and it kind of goes hand in hand, is just overall economic development in the district. Folks are leaving the district because employment is not readily available. So improving infrastructure will certainly help our small businesses and our farmers move their products, but hopefully it will encourage new business growth and maybe hopefully grow the economy for everybody.
Well, the biggest needs of my district right now is, number one, it is so huge. My district is 17,000 square miles, and it's bigger than 9 states, and it's just hard to get around. I can tell you the biggest needs of my district right now is good, fair price for the farmers. They've had a really, really tough time, and there have been so many programs taken away from them. Illinois had 2 programs where farmers would get a good fair market price and have their goods donated to food pantries and charities and things like that. Then there was another program that farmers got good fair market price, and they would donate or they would pass those goods along to the schools, the grade schools and the high schools. Well, Mary Miller has decided those programs aren't any good and they're gone. Along with USAID, the farmers don't have any place to get rid of their crop. As I'm talking to the farmers, and I'll just hang on to the farmers just a second and then go to other things. One of the things that I have found that are keeping the farmers down is big ag. They've only got 4 places to send their cattle. They've got 3 places to get their grain processed. They've got another 3 places to get seeds. And so lack of competition is keeping prices low for farmers, but yet skyrocketing profits for big ag. And I like to remind the farmers that your current congressional representative is taking money from big ag. So your current representative is taking money that they've made on your back. And then the farmers start listening. What else do we need? I can tell you that by going to some of the small towns around, stuff as small as tornado sirens. We've got 3 towns in my district that I know of that needs tornado sirens, and they're like $8,000 a piece. It's not like they're big money. One of the things I found in my district is a lack of mental health facilities. It is a desert out there when it comes to getting mental health to rural America. And that's one of the things that I'd like to change. One of the challenges I have is that grocery deserts. I mean, there are towns in my district that you have to drive an hour just to get fresh food. Another one of my concerns of my district is this: if this big, beautiful bill passes, we're going to see hospital shutdowns and we're going to see nursing home shutdowns, and that will probably put the nail in the coffin to rural America, because once those jobs leave and the businesses that depend on those jobs, then you're going to have trouble. So one of the first things that I would do is that I would really work hard to get that overturned. Another thing about the district is that since there has been no federal money brought into our district for so long, the infrastructure is breaking down. Like we need new water towers in this town, and we need the new sheriff's department in this town. The town of Mattoon went without drinking water for 6 days because their water infrastructure was so rotted out, and they got money from the state and not the federal government. Also, things that I see in the district, like I said, is just a lack of broadband and things like that. So there's a number of things in the district, and a lot of these small towns have different needs. But I'm, like I said, I'm getting out there and listening.
Okay. When I really tell everybody, well, what's not wrong? And because there's been so much neglect. But our biggest thing right now is we have to address the health care. Everyone, we have to be able to make sure our rural healthcare, our rural hospitals, our clinics be able to stay in the areas, to be able to service and give the services to the individuals that live there. There's a couple of counties, I believe maybe it's just one, that doesn't even have a hospital in the county. And so we have to be able to keep those small county hospitals open, or someone's going to have to drive an hour for an emergency. Well, Scott, see, Calhoun's not that far from Jerseyville. So they can go into Jerseyville, but Scott and Brown and those areas up in there, they really don't have a hospital that's in their county. And that's where you need to have your urgent care clinics. We have to get back to the Department of Education, and, I'm not considered a professional anymore with my nursing degree because they consider that non-professional. And so anyone who wants to go advance their degree, they can't get the loans. So our clinics are staffed by, a lot of them are nurse practitioners. And so we have to be able to have that. So we have to be able to help educate people to be able to staff our clinics, to be able to make sure the individuals in that county have access to good health care.
This area has lost good paying jobs over time. How would you bring back jobs to the Metro East and improve the standard of living in tangible, measurable ways?
Yeah, I mean, some of it is things like getting our steel, mills and everything up and running. I do think that part of it is things like bringing jobs like clean energy jobs, like I said, back into the district. And another is really also just making sure that people can start small businesses, that we can invest in small businesses and make sure that all of those handouts from the government go to the people that actually need it, because they're not really handouts. It's trust that we know that we can invest in them and they can get something done. Versus right now, I mean, Tesla paid $0 in taxes last year. Many companies have gotten away with paying $0 in taxes. We need to make sure that we're supporting people where they live. And because there's a lot of towns, and this is not just a America problem or an Illinois 13 problem, this is a global problem, that young people are moving to cities because it's the only place that they can get jobs. And so a lot of towns are dying. And so I say, let's find ways that we can invest in things. Things like building up public media again, so we don't have to all rely on CNN and Fox News, which isn't even news, to get our information. Tangible ways. I do hope that the Medicare for All is one that you can feel sooner rather than later. I also am a proponent for things like universal basic income because our job market is so unpredictable right now. So making sure that we can help to stabilize everyone in America as much as possible. Things like tax reform, we make sure that we increase family tax credits. I want people to feel, even less than a year after we've taken office, that they've actually felt the effects of our policies. And it's going to be difficult to do because we're going to have to deal with Republicans that don't really help the working class and establishment Democrats that serve corporations. But I'm happy to fight them on everything as much as possible. And the housing market is another great example. Right now, it's horrible. I, am looking at potentially refinancing my home because, of my financial situation. And it's very difficult to do right now because of rates, how bad the economy is, how unaffordable homes are. But so I do hope that we can build affordable housing, that we can get private equity, groups like BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street out of housing as well.
You can only bring jobs to the Metro East if the Metro East is a place where those employers can be and make money. Now, I'm not here to make money for a boss. Trust me, I'm here to make money for the working guy. But if we don't have places for the working guy to work, you're darn right. It's going to be a real hard time to increase the standard of living around here. So yeah, we have to fix our roads. We have to fix our rail. We have to make the river easier, faster. We need to make these things accessible to business so that new businesses, new types of manufacturing choose this area. And yeah, that maybe means state initiatives. Now, I'm working and talking with JB a lot about these kinds of things. He knows I'm a working guy and he knows who I'm talking about. If we were able to bring in new types of industry here that we've never seen in this district, hey, I'm from the entertainment business. There are a lot of entertainment incentives that this state could provide. Entertainment is moving all around the country, all around the world now. If we were to, build here, there's a lot that we could build here and sell here. I think that not only have the tariffs and things like NAFTA destroyed local jobs, but they've also destroyed commerce locally. So I think that we need to break monopolies. It's one of my missions in life to break monopolies. There are only a handful of meat packers in the country at all. Tyson, for example, I talk about a lot as well. They're trying to close down a meat packing plant for beef in Nebraska right now. That will kill off about 8,000 jobs, and it will kill an entire township. Why are they doing that? Well, it's not because we have any, lack of interest in eating beef in this country. It's because they want to raise the price of beef by shortening the supply. Tyson has some meatpacking, small ones anyway, in this district and south of us as well. They do chicken, is my understanding. What happens when those are next? When chicken becomes expensive and they want to raise the price artificially of chicken on your table, they'll close these factories, kill off those jobs. We need government intervention in these things. We need regulation over these things. We used to have in this state hundreds and hundreds of meatpacking plants. It was reliable. We used to have reliable rail to get the corn and our grains up and down the state. Half of that is gone. And it is incredibly difficult for farmers to make a living. If I can go on for a little bit longer, my grandfather was a chemist for Wayne Feeds. And yeah, he developed the formulas that fed the livestock that fed America. We're incredibly patriotic about this in my family. I grew up for about 12 years, summers on the farm in Pike County on Nob Hill Farm. And that's the farm that my grandfather was born on and died on. Now, he taught me a lot. He was my father figure and also my namesake. Kyle Weick was his name. He taught me an incredible amount. He taught me, carpentry. He taught me plumbing. He taught me how to fight a bully. And he taught me about Monsanto. He taught me about the monopoly power that these companies have, these agrochemical companies have on the small farmer. What I do for a living now, I'm a producer, right? So what I do for a living is I raise money for theater and film and live projects, but I also do when you have something called intellectual property. In order to use someone's intellectual property, a novel, a book, a comic book, what have you, want to turn it into something on screen or on stage, you have to license that. And that's the other thing that I do for a living is licensing deals. The licensing deals that farmers from today are forced to sign, those agreements with Monsanto and other companies like them. That's what I do for a living. I know how to unravel these deals. These deals that today's farmers are paying are the great, great, great grandsons of the people who first signed some of those deals. The research and development costs have long since been paid back. I know how to help today's farmers get out of those deals so that they're not having to pay for the debts of the past that have long since been paid back. So when we're talking about jobs and standard of living and bringing these things to the Metro East, we need to empower people over monopoly powers. And breaking up monopolies and a strict adherence to that kind of regulation is necessary. Send me to Congress, put me on the Agriculture Committee, and you bet it's a mission for me.
There again, we have to create a climate of growth here, and that starts with supporting the infrastructure so that businesses can thrive, and that may also include things like grants, low interest loans, to get folks either starting small businesses or certainly to encourage folks to stay and expand their business.
Okay, more jobs. Well, one of the things about more jobs, again, let's get rid of that FICA tax that small businesses has to pay. This tax, the Social Security taxes, is so weird because you pay into it up until $162,000, and then you don't pay into it anymore. That's what? So poor people. The Social Security tax is on the back of poor people. I figure if we get rid of that cap, look at all of that extra funding that we're going to have for Social Security. And so I'm thinking if we can just think of how much we could get on Elon Musk alone, And so what we can do is take those funds and either redo or eliminate the FICA tax on the burden of small business. That would be number one. Let's go to my plan number two, a single payer plan. That gets small business out of the insurance business. That opens up money where they can hire new people at maybe a higher wage. Number two, we have got to open up, we have got to start documenting some of these undocumented people so we can put them to work in the farms and put them into work where nobody else wants to do. I also think there should be some kind of, again, an incentive for people who want to stay in the area after they get their education. And, I just think that if we can, raise the minimum wage, I think we can, and take that FICA tax and that insurance off of small business. I think we can get them going again. Let's make our unions stronger. Let's make them more able to bargain. Let's, like I say, find some companies that are willing to invest in where we are. I think Illinois has a little bit of a high tax, and I think that that keeps people from coming here. Let's look at that. Let's talk about that. One of the things that I would do is I would call a council of my coalitions and find out what they think about it. And I would also go to unions and find out what their suggestions are. And, businesses like that to find out how we can stimulate economy in not only the western part, but in the eastern part too. And again, let's start getting this thing moving again.
First of all, we need a new farm bill. The 15th is farmland. some of the richest farmlands in the United States. And we need a decent farm bill. We haven't had a decent full farm bill since 2018. We need to be able to give the farmers the resources they need. In order to do that, we also have to give them sources where they can sell their goods. And we need to bring back USAID, because that was the main source to where our farmers sold the surplus of their farming, their grains and their wheat and their corn and soybeans. We need to bring that back. We need to get rid of the tariffs so we can be able to sell it again. You know, China used to buy 90% of their soybeans from us. Now they're buying none, zero. And so we have to bring those type of things to our farmers. We have to bring back other jobs also. With bringing back the community project funding, those would bring back jobs. But we also need to make sure we're marketing ourselves to be able to say, hey, this is a good place to come and build. This is a good place to, manufacture. But we also have to make sure we are keeping our small businesses afloat too. And that's one of the best backbones we have in this community is our small businesses. And we have to be able to make sure they're thriving and that they don't get outpriced and have to close. So we keep those going. We should be able and encourage more small businesses that, you know what, we can have our old-fashioned downtowns like there used to be. And if we need to have broadband in every little nook and cranny that, even if you're living out on the farm, your only house for miles away, you still should be able to get broadband and not Starlink. And that way, you can work from home then, you can go to school from home, you can chat with people in different parts of Illinois. Then kids might not feel so isolated, especially if they're part of the LGBTQ plus community. They'll be able to not feel so alone. And that way we can help get things moving and get better understanding for everyone. So there's a lot of things that can be done to bring back jobs. And we just have to not really start small, but we have to concentrate on what needs to be fixed first and then move forward. Because if you don't have the infrastructure, who wants to come in with manufacturing jobs when you don't have the ability to sustain them?
A lot of voters feel disillusioned with the Democratic Party. Why should they trust you specifically?
I'm just a dude. I'm just a person that wants to help them. And I know it's easy to lose faith and trust in politicians in general. It's definitely something that I realize that trust is earned. And I've had a lot of people say to me at the doors, at events where I meet them out in public, and they say, why should we trust you? Because I'm going to fight for you. Because I believe in defending the American people. It's why I raised my right hand. It's why I've always wanted to seek out jobs in healthcare, just because I want to help people in any way I can. And right now, with all the leaders we have not doing anything, it's actually fighting for people in Washington.
I am going into this race because I have seen too much trust be eroded by lies from Donald Trump and people telling you that both parties are the same and that you can't trust anyone in government. If you look back at Reagan, he did some of the worst things for public trust. The work that I have done in my life for other people began with my mother. My mother was executive director of Southwestern Illinois Easter Seals right here in Alton. I am who I am today because of my mother. My mother served hundreds of thousands of people with disability. Every county south of Springfield was her territory. We did this 7 days a week. We kept, equipment in our garage, in our house, and we would, fly off to any, you name it, county and help people and serve them. I have led a life of service. That life of service with Easter Seals led then into my union service. And the things that I mentioned earlier, the national labor initiatives that I have spearheaded and led myself to protect people, I have, when you're getting people paid $2 million, the people that are losing that $2 million that they used to be exploiting the worker they're not always happy to lose that money, right? Management doesn't like to lose. And yeah, I've taken some bruises. I've taken some bloody noses, and I've been smeared. Sure. My reputation, as a hardworking unionist stands tall above all of those smears. And when I heard from my AFL-CIO brothers and sisters that they were going to endorse me, they said that it was a unanimous vote. Now, that was hundreds of people in a room who knew me, knew my reputation, knew what I stand for. I felt that deeply in my heart.
I think, I'm not a politician, and I'm not doing this because I'm looking for a career in politics. I've been part of the community for years. I've built trust. I don't take any of that lightly. So I think broadly, if I'm a one-term congressman, if I'm a three-term congressman, I want to be the same person when I go in as when I come out. So I commit to at least being honest and always giving you accurate facts and telling you what I think best I can, for sure.
Because I've lived a pretty long, full life. I've done a number of things. I was in a radio broadcasting business for a long time, and one of the things that I would learn to do was that I would learn to listen to my listeners, because if I didn't listen to my listeners, they'd go listen to somewhere else. I think I have an innate quality to do that. I also have an innate quality to negotiate, and negotiation starts with two people looking to get what they want, and a successful negotiation ends up with two people getting what they need. I've done that. I have worked tirelessly in this district to make sure that I know people, what people are looking for and what they need. But again, my deal is that we have to decide as a Democratic Party where we want to go. And we can go one way or we can go another way. And I just know that if given the opportunity, I would be it would be an honor to serve this particular district. But I got to tell you that if we don't start doing something real soon here, that I'm afraid that we're going to be like the Titanic, and we're going to be going down slow. I think we've got a real good chance to win this, because I think the damage that Donald Trump has done in rural Illinois, but we're going to have to, there's going to be about 35% of the people in my district, they're going to be MAGA followers, and you're not going to get to them at all. They're going to walk off the cliff holding the hand of, the head lemming. But I think there's a group of people out there. There were 240,000 people that did not vote in my district at all last time, and I think if I can reach them with a message of empathy and sympathy and hope, and just reach across and find common ground and say, you know what? Hey, he said he was going to lower your grocery prices, and he said he was going to cut your electricity rates in half, and he said he was going to release the Epstein files, and he said he was going to end the war in Ukraine. And how's the price of hamburger for you? What has he done for your electricity rates? What really has he done? Did he end the war in Ukraine? No. Did he release the Epstein files? No. And then you have to just say something like, hey, we got a better way. We're not trying to kick you off SNAP benefits. We don't want to close your hospital. We don't want to close your nursing home. We don't want to kick you off Medicaid. And as a matter of fact, we're trying to save those programs for you. And so that's my message, and I think it's a progressive message, and I think it's a democratic message that, hey, it doesn't have to be this way. There is a better way, and if you trust us, hopefully we'll be able to make your life better. So that's the trust I'm trying to get from the party.
I'm actually working on my 13 months on this campaign. So I saw the need, and when she ran unopposed in 24, and with going and traveling the 17,000 square mile district, it's a lot of driving, that I've met people, I've listened to people, and they all pretty much say the same thing. She's not accessible. She doesn't bring any money home. Only time she shows up back in the district is when she has the fundraiser, or when she's a keynote speaker for Republican Party. But that's not who I am. I'm a listener. I'm a problem solver. I'm a nurse that I get in and get my hands dirty. And that's the type of person that, when you give me a problem and give me an issue and so forth, I dig in and I say, okay, let's find the solution. And that's what they're not getting right now. No one is getting that right now. When you try to call her and try to send her an email, there's no response, or there's someone rude on the phone to you. That's not how I am. I personally hate it when I can't make a return phone call or a return email within 24 hours, because I don't want to have that person feel that I'm neglecting them or that I've forgotten about them. And that's my personal thing. And that's one of the things I want to bring to this as our next Congresswoman, is that emails and phone calls will be met within 24 to 48 hours. And that because the district is so large, I want to break it up into zones where I have one person in charge of 5 to 7 counties, to where you have one person that you're going to, and that you feel, that you can talk to them, and then they'll come to me. So it's just, we have to meet everyone where they're at, and making sure I go back into, when I come home, go back into the district, having, every quarter having a town hall somewhere in the district. Every month having a coffee in a county in the district. These are things that you have to be accessible. And that's what my plan is to be accessible.
Okay, last one. If you get to DC and find out about aliens, would you tell us about it?
Only if I could do like the Men in Black brain wipey thing afterwards. And then, so I don't know if it'd be worth it. Yeah.
If I find out about aliens, boy, we're all going to find out about it.
Yeah, heck yeah, I promise you. I would, you'd be the first to know.
Oh, hey, listen, when I was 13 years old, I read Chariots of the Gods by Eric von Däniken, and it scared the crap out of me is what it did. It opened my mind, and one of the things that I got from it is that, this is an old planet, man. This planet's been around for a long, long time, and this part of the human race has just been on it for a scant minute or two. We don't know 10% of what we don't know what happened before then. Well, just think about it. Of the trillions and trillions and trillions of planets out there, you mean to tell me that nobody lives there? Come on. And that doesn't make sense. And my thought is that I'm thinking that there are planets probably much older than Earth out there that have much advanced technology and much much more advanced than we are. So I'm open to the fact. And you know what? Wouldn't it be cool as hell to find out that there were?
Sure.